Good afternoon, everyone who are watching us live on our second episode of Tech Cafe. And our topic for today is cloud migration and challenges associated with it. My name is Mayur Sankhe, and I take care of business development along with the team at Flentas. And we have Mandar, who is one of the co founders and CEO of Flentas. So today is your birthday, Mandar. So best wishes to you. And it would be great if you can give a quick introduction about yourself.
Thanks, Mayur. Happy to go live on birthday. A good start of the year. And I look after overall business, marketing, and finance for Flentas. I've basically in the position for last 5 years and handled sales and business in my entire career. So over to you, Mayur. For
Super. I've seen your journey closely, so I won't ask you any more questions. So before we move on to our today's topic, right, I would like to share something on personal front. So I have been looking for a new house since last 3 to 4 years, and whenever I think of migrating from my existing home to new home, it still creates so many doubts with so many pros and cons associated with it. Result is I haven't been able to make a decision. So migration of any sort, maybe it from one house to other house, one city to other city, one country to other country, or moving your legacy or mission critical applications from on-prem or private cloud to public cloud, it is still a daunting task. But thankfully, over the last few years, right, we have seen shift to cloud-based technology services, and it's a global trend which no one can deny. But still, there are so many concerns revolving around migration. So, Mandar, I would like to ask you, if migration is such a complex activity, right? What is your approach to this entire migration process, and how do you simplify it?
Yes, thanks, Mayur. I think you gave very apt analogy, and I think it completely makes sense to a lot of audience, right? And I have gone through this, right, moving from one country to another country. So it's a daunting task when you migrate, right? And for the application migration, for the corporates, it's even more complicated because a lot of things are dependent on entire IT infrastructure and digital strategies. So it's very complex activity, and that's the reason we approach it from assessment perspective, right? So first step in any migration is the assessment. So migration assessment comprise of understanding of existing environment, right? Understanding if your applications are cloud ready, and how big is the organization, how many applications do we have, what are the plans, what is the vision of the company. So all these things will get defined in entire assessment process. The most important part is if applications are legacy applications, right? It's very important to understand if we move them to cloud, do we get actual benefits out of it, right? So it's very important to define how many applications are mission critical, how many applications are legacy, how many applications are cloud ready, and on top of that we can create a plan to actually looking at how do we actually migrate from on premise to cloud, right? So defining the roadblocks, defining the risk, and having a plan to mitigating those risks, right? It's a very important plan, and the migration assessment will define multiple things in terms of how the company is going to approach the migration, and that would be the first process in terms of any migration.
Super. So assessment is the first step, right? But what we have seen in today's times, technology is very closely aligned with the business goals, mission, and vision of any organization, right? In such a scenario, the role of all the stakeholders becomes quite crucial, right? So I would like to understand from you, how are you able to map and convince them to initiate this transformation and adoption of cloud?
Very good point, right? Because if you see 5 years back, right, we are doing sales since last 10 years, right? So 5 years back, the any IT decision was still a part of a IT decision maker, right? Now the IT and digital has gone into the boardroom, right? It's a topic of the town, and everyone wants to know that how companies embarking into a digital transformation journey, and that's become a very central point, and that's the reason we have multiple stakeholders, right? Whenever we decide such a huge complex activity, from migrating any workload from on-premise to cloud, there are multiple stakeholders are involved, right? So there's an application owner who is basically owning that entire application piece, who might be having a team, procured application from third-party vendors. There's an infra owner who is currently managing existing infra and responsible for the uptime of that infra. There's a security owner, CISOs, right, who make sure the entire infra and apps are secured, right? And there is a final business owner who basically own it from the cost perspective, business perspective, and final decision maker in terms of the cost, right? And all of these guys have different challenges. Okay, for example, application guy will have a challenges like he's not able to scale his application, he's not able to use latest technologies, he's not able to experiment, right? Where in infra owner might have other challenges. He must be having challenges in terms of he want to refresh his hardware, he want to do the capacity planning, right? And he has specific set of challenges. And
Yeah.
business will definitely have its own challenges, right? Business will look at it from different perspectives because we will look at that what will get out of if we migrate to cloud, right? What is business is going to achieve? Will my GTM be faster? Will my cost will be reduced? Will I able to innovate faster? Right. So
Yeah.
those are the challenges separate stakeholders have, and bringing them together, right, and creating a strategy which will resolve their challenges, resolve their conflicts, and creating a comprehensive plan. It's the most important. So getting all the stakeholders on the same table, making them understand the benefits, and mitigating all their challenges, risk, doubts which they have in terms of the process. It's one of the most important part. Again, it will be a part of pre-assessment process where we will get them together and get everyone on the same page.
Absolutely. I completely agree with your view. Now the decisions are taken by business and technology leaders to transform digitally, right? To provide better services to their end customers and have faster speed to market. But you spoke about 5 years earlier. I think so. There has been a great change in that.
Yeah.
Earlier, I have seen few of the customers who have moved to cloud, right? There has always been some trigger point to move from on-premise or private cloud due to performance issues, security posture, increasing total cost of ownership, and so on. So I would like to ask you from larger audience perspective, right? What are the typical challenges associated when customers have their entire IT infrastructure on premise, right? When everyone are talking about uh, going digital, especially in today's era. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think very relevant question, right? In today's era, I think it's a digital boom. Everyone is driving towards the digital. And on premise, I think there are very typical challenges because once you are on premise, right, you are owning the entire infra. So management maintenance is your responsibility. You have to do the capacity planning for next 5 years, uh, and that is very challenging. You must have seen during the COVID, right? Within a few days, right, everyone has to shift from office to work from home, right? It's the largest
Yeah.
experiment happened because of COVID, right? And for people on the cloud, right, or enterprises, even large enterprises, I have seen who are all in cloud. For them, this shift was much easier. For the people who are already on premise, right, and they had large footprints, for them this change was little bit painful. It has to be thought through a lot to make sure how can they go through this change. So there are typical challenges, right? You get stuck with specific set of infrastructure. We have to manage that. We have to manage the capacity. Plus, cloud, you get a benefit of a pay as you go, right? So whenever you want to provision, you can provision. Whenever you want to scale up, you can scale up. One of the most important factor I find is the ability to innovate is much higher on cloud. Okay, so for example, I want to do some experiment on analytics. Right? I want to pull the data and run some insights for my business. To do it on any public cloud, right? It's much easier, right? You can pull the data, you can provision the resources, you can use EMR, Hadoop, any available technology in the world, right? And you can run your experiment. Same experiment, if we had to run it on premise, right? We have to procure the hardware, right kind of software, licenses, team, and that becomes very daunting task, right? So the difference is, right, if you are doing it on cloud, the cost of failure is very less. Okay, and
True.
that will increase your ability to innovate, increase your ability to compete in this kind of dynamic market. And that's what gives edge to a lot of companies who are all in cloud. Okay, and this is a very huge advantage in terms of how fast you can, run your GTM, how fast you can bring changes in the organization, and how fast you can deploy applications on cloud. So that is, I think, major shift which a lot of enterprises have started realizing, and that's the reason we have seen this huge shift to a cloud in the last few years.
Yeah. Unfortunately, along with COVID surge, there has been digital transformation surge. But yeah, it's super. Everything is in place and the processes sound simple, right? So once you know the challenges, right, whatever you are facing on premise, you know the reasons and benefits of adopting the cloud, you know the best practices and processes. Once you go through the entire process which you have explained, so now the customer is excited and he's ready to take the plunge, right, to adopt the cloud. So here comes the critical aspect: how the organization will know they are ready for the cloud, and what are the different types of migration suitable to that particular entity. So can you share some thoughts on this
Yeah.
particular aspect?
I think very important question, right? Because this is what exactly we do in migration assessment, right? Uh,
Hmm.
Understanding the existing posture, understanding the maturity of organization, understanding the scale of organization, understanding the complexity of application is very important, and that is a part of migration assessment program. And that's where I think we define generally that is it going to be fit and lift and shift kind of vanilla migration, or is it going to be app modernization or re-architecting kind of complex migration. Okay, for example, we have a smaller set of applications which are not so tightly coupled. It's generally advisable to do the lift and shift first, right, and then we can modernize once we are in cloud, because that's much easier. But if we have a legacy application, okay, for example, we have challenges with licenses, or application has been developed 20 years back and it's not cloud ready yet. In that cases, right, it's important to do app modernization exercise so we can achieve the benefit out of this migration. This migration is basically intended that we achieve multiple benefit. We can bring a lot of power of cloud in the organization. So that is very important. And last option is the rewriting of entire application. Okay, that is the most complex and last resort organization take when they decide they want to remodernize any specific large application. So a large financial services company or media companies who have traditional applications which are running since last 20 years, and if we find in assessment that we may not be get as expected ROI once we move this application to cloud, and that's the time when we have to modernize those workloads. So these are the ways should be defined initially, right? So then we can plan the entire movement of application from on-premise to cloud. And this is one of the most important factor to decide the strategy and decide the type which direction we want to go in terms of migration.
Great. So you spoke about application modernization, application refactoring. I think so this requires expertise and experience. You need to have the required skill sets to make this entire process of adopting cloud, right, a seamless experience, right? So from customer perspective, what do you think, what is the role of partner here? How can they go about identifying the best fit for them, and who can be your trusted advisor in future? So can you highlight some of the important factors?
Yeah, sure. I think very good question from customer perspective, because partners will play a very, very important role, right? As you said, migration from one city to another city is very complex, right? When I migrated myself, I had really bad partner, and that movers give me a lot of pain, right? I had to do a lot of things, a lot of heavy lifting on my own, right? And that was not a pleasant experience, though I migrated, right? So partner plays much larger role, and it will define if it's smoother or you will have a sleepless night, in the entire process or not. So it's depend on customer and its maturity, what type of partner they want to choose. What we call it is a full service partner, right? So the kind of partner will come at very early stage of migration. They will do the assessment, uh, they will define the strategy, they will do the movement, they will migrate workload to the cloud, and they will also manage those workloads to maintain and manage it on cloud, right? So it's end to end services, we call it full service partner. Another is for the large customers, right, or the global customers who basically wants to mobilize resources globally in different continents. For them, it could be say a large GSI partner, right, who can mobilize hundred of resources at multiple locations. Say, for example, you have few application hosted in India, few in US, few in Europe. So following the local compliances, understanding those, and that time, I think it's important to have a partner who understand the local preferences and compliances. Another important factor while choosing partner is, what stage company is in terms of digital transformation. Okay, so there are partners who have a very good understanding of application development. They are expert on development. Plus, they're also expert on infrastructure. So on cloud, the line between development and infra has become very thin, and then it's going to be thin day by day. So it's important to have that understanding for any partner to bridge that gap and make sure that we are choosing right strategy. So those partners also play a crucial role in terms of its app modernization or refactor kind of migration, right? And that is one of the important factors. Second, I think expertise and experience on specific platform play also a very vital role, right? It depends if we are choosing say AWS or Azure or Google, right? Having expertise on those specific platform also makes a huge difference, and having those expertise also very important. So these are the I think few things generally customer consider while selecting partner, and that can be one of the most important reason for successful migration.
Yeah, I think so. Key takeaway for today: finding the right partner, may it be personal life or professional life. I think
True.
so. Right partner is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now the customer is ready, right? They have made the decision to move to cloud. So now here comes the part wherein customers IT team gets excited and they are eager to know, right? How can this entire experience can be smoother? How it can be seamless? Wherein employees, right? The organization's employees, they shouldn't feel that there are any interruptions. So downtime, I think so. This is one of the important burning issue. How would you ensure that downtime can be minimal? I'm sure it differs from case to case basis. It depends on the assessment, it depends on the infrastructure of the customer. But how do you go about finding the right balance to ensure that you are providing minimum downtime required for migration?
I think it's a $1 million question for any organization who wants to do the migration, right? I think this is the first question any business owner will ask, that what is the downtime if you are doing this activity, right? And it's very important to address it in the initial stage, right? Because that will define multiple things while doing entire planning movement, what kind of technologies we are using, what kind of tools we are using. So in assessment itself, right, it should be defined that what is the maximum downtime is allowed to take. Okay. I have seen organizations have moved to cloud halfway, so they are running half the application from cloud, running half the application from on-premise, and that becomes very complex task in future, right, to manage on both the sides. So defining it at early stage and having a strategy, it's very important, and it defines on multiple different parameters, right? Is it a simple application? Is it a complex application? Are your application tightly coupled with each other? Okay. Is your application have any third party dependency? For example, have you exposed APIs to any third party application, and they are also accessing your application and then databases, right? In that case, having integrations in place, and that time having downtime is very crucial, because you have to inform multiple parties if in case you have to take that downtime. So that is also important. Size of the organization is very important, right? Because if it's a large organization, say with 10, 15 applications, right, making sure all stakeholders are in place, and informing them about this change is very important, because if it's a downtime, it's a very small window we will get, right, while that switch, and it's not going to be a large window for a large organization. Specifically, if you're talking about, say, a financial services industry or gaming industry, they can't afford downtime. And the size of the team will define, because we need to communicate this with multiple teams, and that is another very very important factor. And the last, what I have seen in multiple cases, is the available documentation with the team. Okay? Sometimes it's happened to have a very legacy infra application, and there is no proper documentation in place in case we have to move the application to cloud. So quality of documentation will also define, because there might be a surprise when we'll actually do that cutover. Okay? And we need to define all these things in advance, so we can take the strategy accordingly. We can use the right kind of tools. We can align right kind of resources, and all those parameters will definitely play a crucial role for any downtime and cutover strategy.
Super. Wonderful, Mandar. I think so. You have explained beautifully, right from assessment to defining the roadmap, um, to defining the scope, wherein you have properly documented each and every aspect of your infrastructure or how you are going to go about this entire process. I think so. It covers everything what customer is looking for. And finally, there is always cost associated when you are adopting something new, right? But here the cost needs to be associated with benefits and ROI uh, with this transformation is going to bring. So what's your outlook on the cost aspect, right, if you are transforming digitally? So can you explain this holistically?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's again important aspect, right? For any activity for customer, cost is important. There is always a budget constraint. There is always, everyone always asks how much is the cost for this entire activity. So, and any activity, right? If it's a small migration with say couple of application, those efforts would be minimal, cost would be minimal. So that may not be, pinching customer directly, and you will see a lot of benefits once you move to the cloud. But if it's a complex migration, right, with say 10, 20, 50, 100 of applications, right, customer it's planning to go all in, and it's a huge, say, 6 months task, right, aligning say multiple team members, developers, engineers, solution architect, right, and that cost becomes little bit bigger, right, and that's where I think we, along with a lot of cloud providers, run joint programs to make sure this cost will not pinch the customer directly, right? And we will try to accommodate and design a program and design entire migration strategy in a way that customer could get maximum benefit, right? He can get maximum benefit in terms of TCO at the moment and ROI in the future, right? And that definitely help a lot of customer to move to the cloud quickly, right? Because they can show that justification to the business that under this program, my cost is very minimal, right? And that's the reason I could make this decision to move to the cloud quickly. And once you go there, right, it's a long-term benefits are huge, right? You could able to, as I said earlier, right, you could able to experiment, you could able to innovate. You can basically go into the pay-as-you-go model. You don't have to get into the capacity planning, right? And changes would be much easier for organizations. So I think it would be a first stage for the large enterprises to embark on the digital transformation journey. And I think that's the reason I think cost will definitely play a good role. But if we can, define it in programs, right, and try to mitigate the specific challenges business has, I think it benefit customers a lot in terms of short-term goals and long-term goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. Superb. Thank you, Mandar, for sharing your views on this topic. And I'm sure this topic is much more extensive because it is when we are having customers with respect to migration to cloud, sometimes we take months and sometimes we take years. So half an hour can't see the pain of migrating one customer from existing setup to cloud. But it was wonderful having a conversation with you. To sum up, we can say that once you decide to adopt cloud and migrate from existing setup, your businesses can have humongous tangible and intangible benefits, helping you to be innovative, flexible, agile. You can optimize utilization of resources, and you can provide better experience to your end customer. That's why we are here. right? To provide better experience to our customers, who can in return provide best experience to their customers. So I would like to thank you everyone who are watching us live, and we shall continue with this Tech Cafe series on LinkedIn Live and look forward to your participation. And yes, you can reach out to me or Mandar or any of our team members directly, and we shall be more than happy to address your queries. Have a great weekend and cheers.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and it was a great talking to you. And we'll continue this season, and uh, we'll keep you posted. So keep following us for the next topic, and your suggestions are always welcome. Thank you, Mayur.
Thank you, Mandar. Thank you,
See you.
everyone. Bye.